The Outsider is a television show by HBO, adapted from a book written by the legend Stephen King. And it was good, really good. Dragons, elves, and swords my thing, but this show was spectacular. I highly recommend it, so please close out and come back after watching if you have not seen the show in its entirety. This is the first of 6 videos that we're going to be doing on The Outsider. In this one, we're going to address the ending in terms of the story's climax. The Outsider, or rather, the Outsiders, plural. You'll see what I'm saying. The Outsider is one of the names given to the antagonist of the story, El Cuco, the shapeshifter. But that outsider is not the only outsider of the story. We are all outsiders in our own ways in real life, and Holly Gibney within the show, she's one as well, in many ways. Holly is an outsider in terms of life because she's different, very different. And in meta terms, Holly is an outsider because she appears in other works written by Stephen King. Holly Gibney was an outsider in terms of the characters of the show because she wasn't from their community. She was recruited and brought in to help. And she sure did. Alright, pause. So this video that you're watching, this is the video that I made prior to watching the finale, before the finale aired. It's based on the books, and there's one major difference between the books and the show. So let me describe that to you, then you can watch the rest of this video, and then at the end, I'll jump back on camera and explain what we saw in the show, how now we think that Holly may have been marked and their outsider may be becoming Holly, or an outsider may be becoming Holly, not necessarily the same one. Here's a quick update as to the book and show difference. In the books, Holly has on this big jacket, and on one side of it, it's hanging down really low. Ralph even jokes about it, like, what do you got in there? Because she keeps pulling out some useful stuff. It turns out, she had put a sock with ball bearings in it. That was a weapon that her old partner Bill had taught her. Basically, you swing around, boom! And she does that. In the books, Holly's the one that kills or takes out or smashes the outsider and presumably kills the outsider. So keep that in mind when you watch the rest of this video based off the books, the implication based off the books, and like I said, I'll jump back on camera and tie this into the show at the end of this. The reason that Holly was able to take out the outsider is that she is also an outsider. In one more way, which I have not yet mentioned. Let's take a step back. According to the outsider itself, from the books, quote, "And once I've touched someone, I can often, not always, but often, get into their minds, or the minds of their loved ones. I did that with Frank Peterson's family, only a little, enough to push them in directions they were already going." It's important that we define loved ones. Loved ones is not limited to just blood relatives. The outsider scratched Terry Maitland, and he took on his image. But the outsider went on to penetrate the minds of not only Terry's child, Jessa, but also Ralph's wife, Jeannie. The outsider tried to get both of them to tell Ralph to let it go, to stop chasing it. The point is, the outsider is able to penetrate the minds of loved ones. So this was dangerous, because if Ralph knew something, then potentially the outsider would be able to know that as well. Which brings us to the main point of this first of 6 videos. Holly Gibney did not tell Ralph or anyone that she brought that weapon to the fight. If Holly had told Ralph that she had that weapon there, then the outsider may have been able to penetrate Ralph's mind, learn about the hidden weapon, and keep its guard up against her attack. But Holly did not tell Ralph that she was carrying that weapon. Thus, in terms of the information triangle that we have right here, Holly was an outsider. An outsider took out the outsider. So that was my take on the ending of the story in the books before the finale aired. That's still my takes in terms of the show. For now, I think that it's more of a metaphor, Holly being an outsider, and she was one that was able to come in, rally the troops, and get them to go after the outsider to make them believe with a capital B. With that said, there's some strange stuff, like,
hey, when the GIs are getting shit up on the beaches on D-Day, you know what they're told?
Advance or die, or something like that.
Right.
With that said, something similar happens in the books. She actually looks at Ralph and she calls him Bill, which is her old partner's name. She goes, Ralph, I meant Ralph. So is that a sign that the she that Ralph is speaking to is also the outsider or an outsider in the books? Or is it just that she's changed? The situation is bringing out a different side of her? I lean towards the latter, but I'm going to probably reread the entire series and rewatch the entire series over the next week. I will be putting out more outsider videos But with that said, I want to come at this with a fresh mind since the show sort of threw me for a loop. So I'll probably do maybe like 2 Game of Thrones, 2 Altered Carbon, and I don't know, a bunch of other videos first, just to come back to The Outsider later in the week with a fresh mind. All right, I'll talk to you.